All right, it is 3 o'clock Eastern time, which is my time, and I'm going to go ahead and get started. So for those of you who are joined, this is the session I'm going to cover, Power Apps with Azure Application Insights. And thank you for joining my session. So I'm going to go over some of these slides. As always, we're very thankful for our sponsors, and I highly recommend that you go attend their sponsor sessions that they have. That's the least that we can do for the sponsorship that they've done. Also, you have the opportunity to win these raffles over there. One of them is an Oculus. So personally, I've been searching for an Oculus, and they're completely sold out. So if you get to win one, hey, that's a win-win situation. We're also doing a GoFundMe charity, and so that's the look. Where you can go ahead and fund this charity over there. As you can see, it's for all the medical people to whom we owe so much right now in these unprecedented times that we live in. Okay, so I'm going to switch over now and talk a little bit about me. So I come from an infrastructure background, and it's important that I say that is because I'm not a developer. I didn't come from a developer background, and I came from an infrastructure background. The other thing is I worked with Power Apps ever since it was in preview, and as you see, I've intentionally made that Power Apps spelling as Power Apps. I underlined it because back in the day, that's what it spelled like. There was no space in between. So I want to point that out. My interest is not just on Power Apps or on Power Automate. I look at the entire platform as a whole. I look at it from as a holistic approach, from administration to using it, giving the citizen developers the tools that they need. So I look at it from that whole holistic approach. And also my interests have been around artificial intelligence and machine learning, because we see that's plugged into pretty much everywhere into Microsoft right now. In addition, that's my YouTube and my Twitter handle. I also do a lot of YouTube blogging. So if you literally go to YouTube and I just put in Daniel Christian Power Apps, you'll find my subscription over there. And I have a lot of videos on the Power Platform, so feel free to look at it and subscribe. I also ask that you kind of like my videos, comment, and subscribe for that. In addition, in next month, I've got two half-day online workshops coming up. There's going to be for the Power Apps app design and for the Power Automate virtual buttons over there. So if you're interested, there's the URL on the bottom left. It's powerplatformug.com, and you can go and register for that. Okay, so let's go ahead and kick off on the Power Apps with Azure Application Insights. Now, before I jump into any of the insights, let's actually take a look to see what all is already available. And there actually is a lot. And in fact, when I was prepping for this, I noticed that there's been some enhancements added over there as well. So let's take a look at that, because what I'm going to show you is something which is going to be mind-boggling, and you'll pretty much fall in love with it immediately. But I also want to show you what are the functionalities that are available out of the box. So these are the three that are there. There's usage, there's performance, and then there's location. So I'm going to pause over here in the slide deck, and let's actually jump in and take a look at that right away. So what I've come over here is I've come into my Power Apps. It's my tenant over here. And I see that this is the app that I actually built for the demo. And I'm going to click on that app. I've selected it. And on the top right, you see there's something called Analytics. Now it shows that it's in preview, but it's been there for a while. So let's click on that, all right? And as I click on it, you'll actually notice that there's the Power BI logo over there. That should tell you that, hey, this is directly coming. The feed is coming from the back end, but the reports are directly shown on Power BI. So that's basically the beauty of it over here. So let's look at it for a while, all right? Let me make this a little bigger for you. So for that app, it tells me a couple of things right off the bat. It tells me what were the devices and the platforms used. So I know for a fact that my app is actually being used directly from the desktop, and it's also built for a smartphone. And it tells me that. It said, hey, your app was actually used by an iPhone and was also used from the web developer. So one of the cool things about the analytics over here, it's really useful out of the box, and you don't have to do any building, is that it's got how many times were the apps launched in a day count. So it actually told me that in the past 3 days, this app was used, about 2.5 times, basically that many times over here on the 26th. Yesterday it was used once, and then today again it has been used. Today again it has been used over here. It also tells me that what was the version of the Power Apps when this app was used. Now this is very important for you to know, because if you are ever having to do some troubleshooting, and it probably was because of the Power Apps app version, not the app that you built, but the actual app that was there in the device, you can see at that time what is available about the app was over there. And it also gives you the geolocation of the app location. Now that's just on the usage side. Let's go to performance. In the performance over here, again, as you can see, there's the Power BI watermark over there. And it's telling me is that time for the first screen without any connection. It's giving me basically performances over here. You know, the time for the screen to load, time for the first screen to load without any, if there was any data connectors, then you can see that without the connection, the screen loaded up at the speed over here. With the data connection also, it loaded up with that speed over here. So basically the performance with and without the data connections is almost the same. Session in length, like how long was that app actually being used? It's already showing me that. Then the app sessions count by duration, like for a time somebody opened up the app, how long was that app being used over here? So you can kind of see all of that in minutes over there. You can see that in seconds. And again, you can base it based on the geolocations and the devices. And then last but definitely not the least, it's on the location over here. So location is actually not too bad. It is pretty accurate, but every once in a while I've noticed there's a few hiccups on this one over here because, for example, I don't live in this location over here. I live actually more on the East Coast side, but every once in a while I've noticed this anomaly that happens is that it will go ahead and show you a different location, and for reasons, you know, I do not know why, but you know, let that not be a problem over here. More or less is that it does have these out of the box functionalities, and then the additions I've seen is that before you didn't have all these functionalities for Power BI filters. You know, go ahead and putting in slicers to slice the information that you want to see. It didn't have any of that. So these are new features that they've come out with over here. Now, as a Microsoft MVP, one of the first 5 MVPs for the product, the Power Platform, I know one of the first things that even I asked for is that, hey, I know you're saving this data somewhere. Can I have direct access to that data so I can actually go and use it? All I heard was crickets when I asked that question, which means that right now that is not an option. But they have gone ahead and provided all these tools out of the box over there. Which is why the analytics piece that I'm going to show you was so exciting, especially to me over here. But one thing I want to focus on over here, and if you haven't already caught that, is everything we saw from the usage to the performance, everything was right down to the full app level. What I mean is that this doesn't tell you, every section of the app. It doesn't tell you, it's like, for example, the app that I'm going to actually show you has several screens in it. So it doesn't talk about all of that. It's how long did the user come in and use that section of the screen? How long did that take? It doesn't break down and give you the, the granular information down to an inside of the app level. This information gives you analytics of the whole app as a holistic approach over there. So kind of keep that in mind, because that's, again, out of the box, free, without you having to do a single thing. This is fantastic. And for many people, this might be just fine. But what I want to show you is that if you want to take this to, say, an enterprise level app where you want more information, then sit back and kind of enjoy the ride, because I'm going to show you some of these neat features available. So let's take this a step further, and I'm going to demonstrate to you an app that I have, and I've built this fun app purely to prove this point of what I'm going to talk about. So here is an app that I've built. Don't laugh at me at the design. I know I haven't spent too much time at the design. What I did do was I added as many screens as I could. So you see on this left side over here, and by the way, for those of you who are new, this is a Power Apps Canvas app over here. I've logged into the studio, and this is a Canvas model, Canvas mobile app over here. What I intentionally did for this one is I've added a bunch of screens. Now look, I'm actually scrolling, so you can tell that, yeah, he's intentionally added a bunch of screens. Now, someone like me who has mentored a lot of people, and I keep mentoring a lot of people for their apps over here, I've seen actually a lot of apps which have lots of screens, and I personally favor that myself, because you can have add a view app. This is the screen, for example, where I've got a gallery, and I'm going ahead and viewing all the items in the gallery. If I click on it just to view some sections, the view can be on one screen. The add edit can be another screen. There can be a lot of navigation going on. So it kind of helps to break down into different screens, because it helps with troubleshooting. It also helps in maintaining and administering it. So don't think about it as that, man, Daniel just went in an extreme scenario with creating some, crazy number of screens. Enterprise level apps, which are used by a lot of people for multiple reasons in the same app, this is pretty normal. So let's actually walk through this scenario, right? I'm going to go ahead and play this app. And the reason I build this app is for, say, an event like this, where you want to go through, and then users or the attendees who come in, they've got to go through this event registration process. So they come in, on the home screen, there's this option where they can select all these buttons. Now, I intentionally did something to this app, again, to prove a point, and you'll see that soon, is that when I go here, I can click on, initially, all you have is the options to select any of these buttons. So as somebody who's new, me, I come in and I want to start my check-in process for this conference that I've attended. I click on check-in over here, and I've intentionally left this blank because that's not the point, but I've done something. I have gone ahead and put in various ways to navigate through the app. Keep that in mind, all right? Because I'm going to show you some things over there. So what I could do is I came into the initial check-in process for the hotel. So I went ahead and checked in over here. What I could do is now I could hit the home button, and then I could click on the swag button over there. I came, picked up my swag, filled up all the information that I needed. Now, instead of going to the home button, I could actually click the next button. And then over here, I'm going to go ahead and set up meetings with the product groups, and everything's good. I can go to the next button. I said, oh, I'm going to be doing some workshops over here. So I'm going to go ahead and say, yep, I'm doing a Power Apps workshops. I click on that. Then I can go ahead and click on that button over here. I can go on Power Automate because I've got that workshop over here. I can come back. I can go home again, or I can, let's say I go to home. Then I say, I've got some dietary restrictions. I'm going to go ahead and click on, that, select that, come back either to the left, home. I'm doing a lot of this navigation. So some of you may be thinking, Daniel, what are you trying to do and what point are you trying to prove? The reason I'm doing all of this is because it's pretty normal for such large apps to have multiple navigation options for the end user. But when you do something like that, you do have one big problem, is where is the most number of activity happening? What is the biggest or the most common flow of the end users in this entire big app over there? And you want to know that flow because for future enhancements, you might be able to diagnose that, hey, this is a very important screen that these people are not going to for whatever reasons. And so now that I know how the flow and the activity is, or the most traffic when this app is being used, I can actually put in the correct navigations, which means I can actually make sure that there's enough of these to force those people to go to that app screen location over there. And the out-of-the-box analytics that I showed you does not provide all this information, all right? So kind of now you're understanding why I build this really colorful look app over here. I made it dark and purple and white and everything just so that it gets stuck in your head. But I did it to prove a point. It's got a lot of buttons, a lot of screens, a lot of navigations, and just to prove a point that there's different ways to prove. And now you want a way to notice where is the most, what's the most common navigation or usage that's happening in the app, the flow of the app, and that can help you prep to either improve the app, help you even prep to say that, hey, there's important information that I need people to see. For example, I need people to know that, hey, this is the return date for your work. You can go back to the office now that we are in phase 3 of the COVID return thing, COVID-19. You want that right and bright and noticeable. And if you don't want to put it on the home page, you want to put it on the place which is mostly viewed by the people. So you need that kind of analytics information over there, all right? So keep that in mind. And now I'm going to jump over to the remaining amount of the slide deck situation over here, because I want to give you a little bit of insight of what all is available. So we looked at this app usage performance. Now I want to talk about the Power Apps Azure Application Insights. So this functionality to get the log telemetry for your app using Application Insights was actually only made available in February. So it's still not that old. It was just there, and it's gone ahead and provided you some deep telemetry functionality directly tied into the Azure Application Insights. So the question which will first come out is, this is great, but what exactly is Azure Application Insights? So that's basically what I'm going to show you. So Azure Application Insights is actually one subsection of this entire process called Azure Monitor Service. And in the Azure Monitor Service, this is basically just an overview of how it works. So as you can see, It helps to pull out information about applications, operating systems, tenants, resources, and it gives you, first of all, it stores it in two separate ways. It stores the metrics in one storage place, it stores the logs in another storage place. Again, something you don't need to know, it's just nice for you to understand how it works. And then once you have all of this data that it collects, you have the functionality to go ahead and get insights right down to the application level. It also goes ahead and gives you out-of-the-box visualizations, which I'll demonstrate that to you, gives you the ability to analyze, respond, and integrate, and so on and so forth. Here's another good way to see that is that in the left over here, you can see how the data can be collected from different places, like web pages, web pages, and apps are a great place because that's how the app is in our example over here. And over here, once it makes web services calls where the data is stored, and then it can go ahead and have these dependencies on the external services, the SQL databases, basically the places where it stores over there. All of that storage place directly ties into App Insights, and then you can see it at the alerts level, the Power BI, REST API, which you can connect to those APIs over there, and also gives you the functionality to export that data over there. So I'll talk a little bit about that. So the application performance management gives you the functionality to get all of this information. It can get you how fast the requests are, the responses are over there, any failures over there. Gives you some really good analytics on page views and load performances, users, session counts, performance counters over there, and then location services. So it gives you all that functionality. So now that you understand the whole Azure monitoring service and then how the Azure Application Insights is one section of that, now you kind of understand what this happens is what exactly is Azure Application Insights. So what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to show you a couple of things, at least since this is a 50-minute session over here and we're already 16 minutes in, I'm going to actually give you some insights into this. What we'll take is we'll first log into Azure. I'll go into the Application Insights. We'll go ahead and create an insight over there, and we'll get something very important, which is called as a token. And then I'll take that token's connection and I'll apply it to an app, and I'll show you how to do that. And then after that, I've got some examples of how I've got this running in a few of my apps, and I've been playing with that apps a lot to show you. In fact, one of those apps was that one that I showed you, the one with so many navigations. I kind of showed that to you. So I'll show you the type of deep integration logging that it does. And then the final piece is how I can actually export the data and import into a Power BI, right? So that sounds good? Great, let's move forward. As always, I have to tell you about the requirements because remember, this is outside the Power Apps realm, right? So in addition to Power Apps, I'm going to leverage Azure services. So there's some requirements for that. You need to be able to have, first of all, have access to create a new service, the Azure monitoring service over there. Now for testing purposes, you can, for the Azure subscriptions, you can do a pay-as-you-go for testing purposes. In fact, that's what I'm doing for this testing one over there. But then there's different billing cycles and billing counts available. And the billing counts for this type of services is not based on per user. It's actually based on the amount of data that you're storing, which is pretty normal for a logging tool. So over here, here's an example that if you just do a 5 gig per billing account, per billing cycle, then all you get charged is for $2.76 per gigabyte. So our big takeaway is that for testing purposes, you can do pay as you go, or you can come up with the billing cycle, different billing categories that you have, but the billing is all based on the data amount, not per user or things like that. You will need to assign makers for that Azure Application Insights service role. So because somebody needs to have access to go to that application insights over there and to go ahead and create that insight for your app based over there. So either you as a Power Platform admin has that access, or somebody else on the Azure admin has that access. Somebody needs to have that access to go ahead and give you that token key over there. And then finally, in order to apply that service to your app, somebody needs to be at least an owner or a co-owner level access to the app. So kind of give you the requirements over there, but I'm going to now jump in and start showing you how we can go ahead and configure all this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually step away from here. I'll go ahead and close this one, and I will pick another app that I'm going to use as an example. So I'll come over here to my Power Apps, and I'm going to pick a app just randomly. Let's do my speech recorder app. I'll go ahead and pick that one over here. I'm just going to keep the app ready in the studio. So we'll wait for that to open up over here, and the app just opens up in the studio, and I've gone ahead and planned to use that app over here. So now that this app loads, what I'm going to do is I'm going to now jump over to my Azure. And remember, you need to have an Azure admin level access to do this kind of stuff, all right? Come on, keep loading, keep loading. Oh, actually, it is taking a while for this one. All right, we'll let it finish the thing. So let's go to Azure, my Microsoft Azure over here. Now, since I've used it a lot, it kind of shows up already over here. But what if this is for the first time, you just come up to the top and you just look for Application Insights, and then right on the top, you will see your Application Insights. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Now, one of the things you want to do is you want to have your service for payment subscriptions already set up. The reason, I mean, my session doesn't focus on that, but I just want to call you out that whatever you're doing, you need to have that service for the subscription set up. So now I'm going to come over here, and this is a very important thing that you need to know. It's best that you want to create the application insight one at a time for each app. There's a reason for that, because if you use one insight, one token for multiple apps, your logging is going to become a nightmare because you won't know where the data is coming from. So my best recommendation, based on extensive testing that I've done, is that if you want to create an application insight, create a separate app insight for each app. That makes your reporting a lot easier. All right, so this is the subscription piece that I talked about. I'm coming to the subscription. I've already got a resource group created, so I'm just going to select that one. And I'm going to kind of name this very similar to the app itself. So I call this app as my speech recorder app. So I'm going to come over here. And I'm going to first say that this one is for Power Apps. I'm going to put that in. And then I just put in speech recorder app. It's simple for me to do that because when I come over here to my application insights, I got to keep in mind that this app insights is for multiple purposes. Remember in the screenshot that I showed you, I mean the slides, anything which you can make an HTTP call to, or you can connect to that. For example, I can do that even on SharePoint pages or a site level. Bottom line is I could use this for a bunch of things. So name your instance to something that makes sense. That's why my prefix for the instance is just Power Apps. So I immediately know that, hey, this application insights instance is for a Power App over here. And then I put in a hyphen and then the app name. So it's just easy to understand. And then whatever name you put in, it goes ahead and validates that, yep, this is a good unique name that you can use. And then after that, you do it based on your regions. And there's a bunch of regions available. I live on the East Coast of US. I'm just going to randomly pick one of these two. And then I'll go ahead and do create a review and create. So it's just doing a validation process. It said, yep, validation passed. I'm going to go and create it. So it takes about a minute or so to do that. It moves around. We'll just let it finish its deployment. And now that the deployment is complete, what we can do is we can actually go straight to and just, overview it. I can go back and go to the resource actually. And as you can see, this is the one that we created, Power Apps Speech Recorder app. You do have the option to go ahead and rename it after you've done that. So if you came up with a name and you're going to come back with a new naming convention syntax, no worries, you can go ahead and change that over there. Now, one of the important things that you need is this instrumentation key. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to copy that. So it puts it automatically in the key, in my clipboard. Now let's go to the app. So in the app, by default, it always selects, in the App Studio, it selects the screen one. What you do is you actually click on the top over here, which is the app. And once that is selected, there's already a concept over here called instrumentation key. So this is where I go ahead and paste that GUID that I had. So remember, I was over here. I went and picked up that instrumentation key. I copied it, went to the app, clicked on the app over here, and I pasted it. Now there's something very interesting that's happened over here. I've actually informed the product group on this one. I went ahead and pasted something, which means I made a change. For some reason, the app doesn't notice that. It opened up and I clicked somewhere else. But if this was a brand new app, it would not give me the option to save. It says that nothing is needed. Like I'm going over here and clicking it, publishing it. But if you went ahead and pasted something, they would say that there was no change made. So if you come across that situation after you've saved it, just go ahead and do something, click on something or move something a little bit, just make a change because you've got to come ahead and save this app and make sure that the app that is saved is the new app with the instrumentation key. All right, that makes sense? Okay, bottom line is make sure that the instrumentation key is saved. And if you don't see the save option, just make any slight change to your app and save it. All right, so I've gone ahead and saved it. I've gone ahead and closed it. And now one of the things that in the documentation for Azure Insights says that it can take up to an hour for the data to start showing in over here. So it can take up to an hour over there. Now, it is true that I've seen things take up to 30 minutes, but I've also seen data coming in as quickly as 15 minutes. All right, so it's important that you kind of keep that in mind. But what I want to do is actually want to show you a few apps. So remember that navigation app that I showed you? I've actually got some insights being pulled on that. So remember, this was the app that I went over here. I went ahead and used it from the desktop. I went ahead and used that from my iPhone over here. I did a few different ways, and I've been doing this extensively for quite some time. So, and remember, again, I went ahead and showed you the out-of-the-box analytics functionality, which is pretty good, but it only gives you the app as a holistic. It doesn't give you deep information over there. So now that I've already shown you how we've gone and configured that, let me show you some examples and really blow your mind off. All right, so I'm going to come over here, and like I said, my naming convention that I do is I went ahead and put in Power Apps, and then that app itself is called as navigation. I think that's what I call it. Yep, navigation app. So now I know what that app is. I'm going to come over here. All right, overview. I know that this information has been running for a while, for over 7 days. So pretty much everything I do, I'll be seeing for about 3 to 7 days. So there's really not much information that has been gathered over here, but again, let's keep moving forward, right? So what I'm going to do is I can come over here first, and I'll show you some of the really neat ones. So let's first talk about the users. So the Power Apps over there, it was able to show me, the users and where they were using it and how many times they were using it. So this information also out of the box, it shows me that, hey, all of these were being used over here, and this is how many times it was used in the last 24 hours. I can bump that up to 7 days. So it gives me detailed information of how many times the apps was used there. Now, some of you may say, well, Daniel, that was already there in the Power App side. So currently, I'm still not impressed. You still have to wow me. So I said, okay, I get it. Just give me a few minutes. I'll get you over there in the wow program. So I come over here now. All right, and I show you that, hey, it's telling me properties, it's telling me that the locations that I hit over there. Granted, the locations were not that accurate because it only shows me, United States over there. And then it tells me, I said, oh, but maybe it shows me the operating systems. Like there was iOS and there's Windows 10. It's deep enough. Okay, so here's one thing that you got to be amazed of, okay? Because it's telling me right down to the iOS level, 13.4. Power Apps analytics did not show me much over there. When I was looking at the browser one, it's even telling me what browser version, what Chrome version. The Power Apps one did not show me all that information. So I know what some of you are thinking. So Daniel, this is okay. You got my attention. This is pretty good, but I'm still not feeling that wow factor. All right, so I get you, right? I get you. Now here, I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to start doing that wow factor over here. Now remember, in the Power Apps over there, its geometric location place wasn't that accurate. Over here, it is spot on because it's not even picking up the state, but it's picking up right down to the city that I live in over there in that location. So it's telling me right over there, what the user was using over there. And I can break it down into the 5 most users. I can break into the most active users. It does it at that level. But let's not just stop here. Okay, this is where you're going to start getting impressed. I'm going to click on this, and now it's loading. And check this out. I'm going to give you a minute just to absorb this. So it's telling me everything about this one user. So the total number of sessions that was done by this user ID, and I'll speak a little bit more on the user ID in a second, about this user, how many times that user has used that location, all devices, which means that this user has used mostly on the desktop and prefers the Windows 10, prefers the Google Chrome over there. But check this out. Now, it's not only telling me the timestamps, but it's also telling me how many times that person was there in the app. But let's not just stop over here, because watch this. This is going to blow your mind. I'm going to expand this, and it gives me detailed information of everything that user did in that app. And it is so accurate because right there in that app, it is even pulling in the screen names I had, the exact same screen names that I had shown when I logged in over there and into the studio. These were the screen names I put in. And so look at the detail. It said that this person logged in using that, he or she was in this location, logged in at that time, And in that app, this is how many times, I mean, this was the flow that the person did in that app. So it's basically saying that the person was in the home screen, went to the check-in screen, went into the swag screen, so on and so forth. And all in all, the person stayed in this app for a total of 30 seconds over here. And I can click on it too. And in the clicking on it, it gives me a little bit more information, right down to what was the actual breakdown of how all the content was coming from the back end Azure, how actually it was talking to the app in the back end over there. It's going down to that detail level. It also breaks the duration down right down to that seconds level over here. Gives me custom properties right down to the app level. Like here's the actual URI of the app over here. Really detailed. In fact, when I was first testing this and I tested on myself, I was like, man, not only is this good, this is like at the borderline of scary because it tells you everything. The only thing it hasn't told you is, did that user sneeze at that time? Because other than that, it tells you everything. This is what the user clicked. This is what the user was location. This is how much time the user did. The only thing it didn't tell me is, hey, did that user sneeze? But you know what? I'll give these guys another 6 months and they might even be able to pick that up. So yeah, that was just a joke. But honestly, let's not stop over here because what I want to do now is I was just on the users over there, right? I'm going to come and click on user flows. And this is really going to blow your mind. So what happens is let's first just look at this over here. And I'm going to let you look at it for 5 seconds and just absorb that picture. I'm going to ask you a few questions over here. So the question I have is, first of all, it gives you a very good graphical diagram, right? Because the other one, which I showed you, was just bullet points over there, which is still pretty neat. This thing is kind of similar, but it shows you that deep insight of how this information works over here. And then you can go ahead and even expand more on that. I can go ahead and expand, say, show me what were the next 9 steps. So it says that getting your data, working with 10,000 sessions over. So it's really helpful because it's able to pull all this information of how everything was working. What I can do is I can even click on edit over here. And I said the time range is actually only 12 hours. I'm going to bring that down all the way to sessions. And I'm going to go ahead and do both. I want to get all the custom events and page views. And I'm going to click on the graph. So now I've gone ahead and not just 12 hours, but I'm going ahead and getting 7 days worth of information. So what you're going to see over here is actually really important. So let it load. It's going ahead and updating the graph, and it's going to go ahead and bring all this information over here. Now, a couple of things you're going to notice when this thing loads up, and you see this information. Now, watch how this works. So the way the graph shows is, see the thickness of these pipelines over here, the way these flows are working. What that tells me is that initially when the app opens up, see the app on start, when it opens up, there's a thick and only a single pipeline, which means by default, when the app opens up, everybody goes to the home screen because there's only one pipeline over there. But here things get interesting because remember, in the app, I've got the option over here right on the home screen to go ahead and navigate to any one of these button options that I've shown. That's how that app worked over there. So same thing happens over here on the, that's the same information that is providing me in this graph, is that once the person is on the home screen, most of the traffic is going on the initial check-in screen. And that's what I also did over here. So it's telling me that that's basically how the flow was working. Now, how that can help you is that that's an enterprise level person or the app builder is that, hey, this is the flow, the major flow of how the traffic is going inside that app based on the screen. So if I want to put in any enhancements or anything which needs to capture the user's attention, try to put it on either one of those navigation places because that's where the most traffic is going. Because that's where you can see that the pipeline over here is the most thickest, which means that's where most traffic is going. So most of the traffic is actually following this pipeline process. The step number 1 is they go to the check-in screen. Then the step number 2, they go to the swag over there screen, product group screen, workshop screen over there. Then they go to the workshop screen over there. Other things that they're showing is every once in a while, there are situations where people are going into, from here, they're coming in and they're going ahead and ending that. There are situations where people come into the check-in screen and then they go ahead and straight away jump to something else over here. There are instances where most of the people who've come in came to the home screen, but then they jumped straight to the transportation screen, and then from the transportation screen they went somewhere else. So it shows you this mix and match of how people are navigating. Now, if this hasn't already shocked and wowed you, I don't know what else will, because remember, this is not available anywhere inside the apps. This is not available anywhere, even in the admin center over here. Remember that one over here did not have this functionality. So it goes ahead and keeps giving you this more and more information that you're able to do. And see, it's just collecting data. And it's collecting data at such an intimate level, because I can go ahead and look at it, click on the information and see that, yep, right here, it has been, there were 7 sessions in the past 12, past 7 days that actually had this flow over here. And it's able to go ahead and, show the mix and match of the different things that are going on over here. Now that we've come over here, let me also show you a few more options that are available. One of them is the alerts functionality. So the alerts functionality is actually out of the box. It already does a quick health check just to see has there been any, based on the number of ways the apps are working. Was there a place where it just took too much time for the app to load or things like that? So it already does a smart way of doing a health assessment, and it says so far you're good. There are no alerts, but that means that I can go ahead and set an alert. I can go ahead and set an alert. It says, yep, I want to go ahead and do it for that. I can go ahead and put in some conditions. In the conditions, I can go ahead and put in based on the metrics and the logs, and I have all of these other signal names. Like, hey, I want to catch a signal based on the loading time, or based on the availability, or based on the duration. That something happened where a user would, from the finish to the end, usually takes them about 2 minutes. For some reason today that duration is taking 5 minutes. So is there something wrong on the app side, or is there something on the user side? You can go ahead and put in all of these alerts over here. So that's one of the neat things on the alert side over there. Okay, now the other, okay, kick me out. Let me go back in, and again I can find it based on the navigation there. So we talked about the alerts thing over here. The other thing that I want to talk about is in the logging piece. So when I come to the logs, out of the box, it says that I have the functionality to go ahead and see all these queries over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually try to replicate something, and I come over here to load to the editor. And here, very similar to what a SQL query looks like, this is what it does over here. So I'm able to go ahead and click on the last 24 hours. Let me switch that over to 7 days. And it already has the query for you. So I didn't have to write any query. I did not need to know SQL query code or anything. I just clicked on that, and I'm going to go ahead and click on run. Now this again looks very similar. It's basically just showing me a count of how many times the pages were viewed in the past 7 days. But it also gives you a where am I clicking? Yep. Oh, yeah. It also it gives you the functionality to go ahead and see it as a chart way, go ahead and see it as a line way. But here's something else that it does, and this will actually wow some of those people who are always saying that, Daniel, this is all great, but I just need that little extra information, and I wish I had the functionality to go ahead and build my own graph. This is what does that for you, and I want to kind of walk you through that a little bit. So again, in this scenario, I came in over here, and I wanted to go ahead and just get the page views for the last 7 days, went ahead and did that. Now I'm going to come over here to the export, and it has the option to do a CSV of all columns, CSV only display columns, but it also gives you the functionality to export as Power BI mQuery. So let me show you that. I'm going to click on it. It says, yeah, I'll allow that. So it downloads this one over here. So let me open that up and show you what that looks like. So it's actually pretty simple and straightforward. What it does is it's basically created the advanced advanced Power BI query over here. But notice something is it does not give you the data. And I really like this functionality over here because your data is still safe. It is still secured inside the Azure, secure umbrella over there. What it is doing is it is connecting it via an API connection, and it's already put that into a nice JSON API connector for you. Goes ahead and even gives you, here's the connection for the app ID, and that's the query over there. The query included all of these columns. These are the column types and everything. So it keeps the data very safe. It's not even exporting the data for this Power BI one over here. It just gives you the connection string. So let's make use of it. I'm just going to move this to the right, and I've opened up my Power BI over here. And that's all I did. I just opened it up. I haven't done any connections or made any, visualizations. I just opened it, and I'm coming over here to the edit queries, and I click on the edit queries over here. And in the edit queries, once it loads up, I'm going to actually, What happened? Close. That's interesting. Let me go back and try that again. Let's do the enter data man. Nope, don't want to do that. Let me go back to the edit queries. That's where it was. Oh, here. Okay, so let's go to the blank query over here. I click on the blank query. And in the blank query, there is something called as advanced editor. So I click on the advanced editor. And now all I do is I come over here and I do a control A for control all, control C for copy. And I just override it over here. And I'm deleting everything over here. And I do a control V to paste it. Give it a second. I see no squiggly lines. It says no syntax errors have been detected. Click on done. What it is doing right now is going ahead and talking through the API connection over there. And it has gotten me all the information. And I can now just do a close and apply. And I do a close and apply. And you can see that all the data comes through over here. This was the timestamp I had for all the times my apps was used over the period of 7 days. It already gives me the data. And it already goes ahead and gives me a direct connection, a connection to that API. Granted, it is static data, so it's not always going to be dynamic to pull the information over here. But this is how I was able to go ahead and get the count, and I was able to go ahead and get the timestamp of how everything was used. But this is just one example. I can go ahead and pull other informations over there, because in the log functionality, I'm going to go ahead and close this one. Click out. I can come to the log functionality over here. And I have all bunch of other log options I can go ahead and do based on just how the traffic was in IP addresses or in countries over here. And I have different functionalities. Change that back to 7 days, run it, and all this data comes through over here. So it's basically all the data that you want in a safe and secured way. It gives you that API connection, and then from that API connection, it is able to go ahead and you can go ahead and import that in as an advanced editor. And then now you've got your own data. So you can basically just come in over here and you can just go ahead and start adding any of the visualizations that you want. In the visualizations, you can say, yep, that's going to be my month. And then in my month, the actual value is going to be the count. And then you've already started building your own graph over here based on just the data. You don't have to be dependent only on the out of the box functionality, which I think is already great. You can start building your own graph because it's collecting the data and it's already storing it. And then now it gives you a direct API connection to build that graph over there. Now, there's also some other informations available over here. In the more, there are all these places to actually get more information. So the analysis of page views, that's another way to come in over here and actually build more of those reports. So I can come here and I can click on see how the page views are. This was just an example of the page views. But right now, if you want to quickly just see all the information, you can see these were the overall page views that were done. These were the unique counts of just those views over here. I can scroll down and I can even see time for first interaction. Gives me right down to the time that it takes, in minutes, how much it took over there. Time for the page exit rates, from the time they came in over here to the time they exited, how much was there. I mean, I'm really pretty impressed of even out of the box how much data it is providing over here, all thanks to just one connection which I had today. All I had to do was take the token ring, went ahead and connected it directly to the Power App, and in a matter of 30 minutes, it starts pulling in data. Now, the important thing that I want you to note over here is that it is able to only give you data right from the point that you applied that token over there. So you applied that token today, and then from today moving forward, it's collecting all the data, which means from today moving forward, that's the only information you're going to see. You can't go back 30 days past because it hasn't had the token yet. It hasn't saved any of the data. So kind of keep that in mind as you're planning that over there. But all in all, from the Azure Analytics side, all we had to do was basically just come over here, go ahead and set up the application insight for that, and come into the overview and just grab that instrumentation key. That's all we did, is we grabbed the instrumentation key, and then we opened up the app, and in the app, right on the app, there was a place to go ahead and put in that key. And in 30 minutes, it starts collecting all this data. And then once you go ahead and get your data, it'll come over here. So let's see, it's been a little over 30 minutes. Let's come to the speech recorder app over here. And let's see, are we getting any information? Because that's the one I just added, right? And I think if I go back and maybe I clicked on it a little bit, but let's see what happens. In the last 24 hours, okay, this is the first one, gets used. We'll go ahead and get used to start using it. Yeah, that's all good. Close it. And maybe it wasn't enough over there. So we'll try that one more time. Go back to the users. And it actually, the reason this pops up over here is because it really doesn't have any data yet. So keep in mind that 30 minutes is a maybe, but I've seen it come as early as 15 minutes, or it can take up to an hour. So just as a recap, what we did today was we went ahead and showed two things: that Power Apps out of the box has great analytics functionality over there. It does have the capability for you to come, select the app, click on the analytics over here, and look at it at these three different levels: usage, performance, location. Remember, the location was a little bit of a hit and miss because it was pointing in one location where I'm actually not located over here. But when I showed you the example of the Power Apps over there, I mean, the Azure Analytics, it was a spot right down to where I was living, right down to the city area over there and how many times I used. So that was functionality over here. When you use Azure Application Insights, just make sure you're mindful of the licensing over there. The licensing is not based on per user, but it's based on the amount of data usage that you're going to do over there, which in this term was gigs. Once you've gone ahead and set that up, you can go ahead and get that instrumentation key, add that instrumentation key to the app, and give it at least an hour, minimum 30 minutes. Sometimes I've seen it go as fast as 15 minutes. And then after you've done that, you can just come in over here and you can just start getting all this information that I showed you, right down to the flow of all the way the apps are moving over there, the flow of the users and the usage of the apps at this detail level. It shows all of that. Okay, so do we have any questions that have come in so far?
There are a few questions that I published them. If you want to click on the publish, and you will be able to see them. So that way everyone can see them.
All right, going over there on the publish. Okay, so the first question I have is, can the analytics information retrieved using PowerShell or Power Automate to send on a weekly report? Krishna, the answer to that is I really don't know. There is no way to make a connection, but remember, there's an API connection. So if you're smart enough to go ahead and do some kind of PowerShell API connection, you might actually be able to achieve that. So kind of keep that in mind. The reason for the API is to automate it. Now, some of you may already be thinking, hey, that was a way, there was a Power BI, so can I get a direct query connection? And the answer to that is no. It is a static connection, which means you got to go to that place, export that connection, and then import it over there. Granted, it's still an API, but it's not a direct query connection, which means you will have to keep doing that. Okay, and Krishna again says, does any of the analytics, any of these analytics provide how good the app was created with respect to performance? No, actually, that's a loaded question because you really can't tell how good an app was created. What you could do though is you could see from the and that's not even just Power App. I mean, the analytics, that's actually more on the Power App side. Is one of the things that I personally do is I come over here and I look at how fast the app was actually in the performance over here. This is actually a little helpful. That might help you a little bit, Krishna, on that way. Is the functionality to see how fast the app loads with and without connection. This can help you a little bit to answer that question. Is the the performance over there? Because sometimes it's not the app that's causing a performance problem. It could be the data connection, and this actually helps answer that. So hopefully that asks that. And then it says last one is, due to bad design of the app, the data in the screens may take very long. Is there a way we can find data in the analytics? Again, this is the way to do it. Is that you can see how fast the app loads with data and without data over there, and then you'll be able to understand that. What you could do also is, let's see, in the events, let me see if you looked at the logs placed over here. It gives you a detailed breakdown based on the trends and any of the slowest pages. That's one of them over here. So you could actually run this and you can see how fast everything. We'll go ahead and get some more information for you. Run there. You can expand on that and actually get a little bit more information. One of the logging places over there gives you a really truncated, deep by deep example of how all the information is coming in, and they're actually, once you export it, you might get more data than what you see over there. So play around with it, and you'll actually get that kind of data over there. But I kind of see where you're going though, because you want to see that the app might be so good, it could actually be the data connection over there. And for some things like that, you actually have to just focus on a combination of things. You can look at the performance standpoint over there. There's a little bit more setup that is needed on the performance over here, but overall, you can even see, in the last 7 days, how fast at what time of the day the app has been working. So you can use the combination of the two data and basically get all the information that you want. I think I got all those over there, and we are exactly 15 minutes on the dot. So thank you all for attending my session. And then, as always, go ahead and give that feedback. You had something?
There's one more question.
One more question. Let's see. Any idea how much this will cost per subscription to enable on one environment? Krishna, why don't you just go with the one that I've used, is the pay-as-you-go. I've been using my pay-as-you-go, and I get that 120 or 180 free subscription, which is at amounts that you get right here. I'll show you. The credits, I think I get 150 credits. And for my test environment, I have not even paid a single amount because I've stayed within those credits over there. So you can actually start playing with that, and pay as you. If you really want to put in a subscription for paying, put that pay as you go, because for simple apps, you're not going to get charged that much. It really doesn't, or at all. So finally, go ahead and give feedback. Speaker feedback is very important to me. I ask for constructive feedback. Don't put in something saying that, hey, Daniel Christian sucks. That doesn't help me. Go ahead and say something like, Daniel Christian should have focused more time on this section of the slide or more time on that demo. That feedback really helps me. So hopefully you will take time to give me some feedback. If you like what I said, great, go ahead and put that feedback. If you think I should focus on a little bit more, provide that constructive criticism. Otherwise, thanks for joining.